I really want to say thank you for the concert last night that we had the privilege of listening to. Thank you. I was just captured and moved, and many of us were, by the dance theme, by the theme of dances, by your program. I mean, you had Bach, Bartok, Schumann, and dance just ran through the entire recital. How did that come about? Are you a dancer? Have you been a dancer? What inspired you to put this program together?
Thank you for your words, and I appreciated being here last night very much also. Well, first of all, those three composers are some of my favorites.
Yep.
So I like putting especially Bartok Schumann together and Bach Schumann together. So I thought of this program also in terms of the composers. But then in terms of the dance, I think a lot about the physicality of making music and movement throughout music and the flow that music needs. And the other art form that perfectly captures flow in physical movement is dance. And I also grew up around some dance. My family frequented the Hungarian house in New York City, where we did some folk dance and sang a lot of folk music since I was a very young girl. And actually also my mother would dance around the house on the weekend mornings, you know, cleaning and stuff. So it was just to get out of your head, to get out of whatever was bothering you. There's a movement to
it's
release
part of you,
yourself.
there's release.
Yeah.
It was really clear because what I also really appreciated was the program was full of short elements, short dances.
Yeah.
And the combinations thereof really took us places. And you moved too. I mean, we were just talking now about how you needed a piano stool that was wider rather than
Yeah.
because you need to move as you perform.
Yeah.
And we don't always see that as when a pianist is performing a recital. Often pianists are quite stationary, but it's really in you. I can see it. This need to share, to communicate, to be free.
Thank you.
You touched on Hungarian house, and I'd like to hear a bit more about your background because we have this wonderful combination of born and raised in New Jersey.
Yeah. I'm born in New York, raised half in New York, then New Jersey, but yes.
Okay, we must, yes. Knowing the rivalries, we must get this right.
Yeah.
But very much East Coast.
Yeah.
Born and raised in early studies. But your family from Hungary with a very proud Hungarian heritage, learning Hungarian at home. We were talking earlier, and you used to go every summer to visit extended family in Hungary and take summer camps and sort of wellness retreats.
Yeah.
It's rare to have this sort of so integrated balance between East Coast US and Central Europe.
Yeah.
How's that framed you? What does that bring to you and for you?
Well, I think growing up on the East Coast in the early 2000s, I was surrounded by a lot of immigrant families, a lot of kids in my position, and not only Hungarian, but Asian, Israeli, from everywhere. So it was a good way for me to grow up, surrounded by a lot of different cultures, actually. And then I always felt quite happy and excited to go to Hungary every summer. I mean, I had some good friends there. I loved the nature, the food, the activities we did there as kids. We had to do swimming camp, we had to do horseback riding camp, but nothing pretentious or fancy. It was just part of life, these kinds of, again, movement things as a child, to enjoy things, to play.
Yeah, because these weren't music. We're not talking about music camps
Yeah.
or music academies. This is very much.
No, it was for health.
Yeah.
And for your pleasure. I mean, as really a child, 8, 9, 10 years old. And then I also got into the hands, very thankfully, into the hands of a very, very good Hungarian piano teacher in New Jersey when I started. And she stayed my piano teacher until I was 17. Her name is Christina Kish. And she just, connected the two worlds so clearly from before I can remember. So I grew up with a grandmother who taught me sewing and the language by reading old folk tales and singing me these ancient songs in Hungarian. I grew up with parents who were working in New York City and, making a new life, basically, in America from Hungary. And then I grew up with other kids who were also coming from similar immigrant backgrounds. So it was just such an enriching experience, actually, in my childhood, if I think about it.
The mix of influences is really clear, and I can see that you're very at home in Europe. I mean, you're now based in Berlin and have been for a while, and I think you're sort of bringing the best of both worlds to your recital, to your performances, and to your way of operating and collaborating and keeping an open mind to where your performance career is already going.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk a little about you're part of the Classeek program, the Ambassador program, which is a 1-year professional development mentorship program in a way. And I firmly believe in the importance of mentors. You mentioned your teacher who perhaps joined threads in your upbringing. Classeek invites ambassadors to select or recommend, to suggest artists for the Classeek program. And you're recommended by Sir Andras Schiff, and through him the Building Bridges mentorship scheme. So how did you come about to first connect with Sir Andras Schiff? A lot of people would like to be discovered by him or to be heard by him, but how did this happen in your case?
Well, I had been studying with Richard Good in New York, and they are very good friends, and I approached Mr. Schiff after one of his concerts that he actually gave at Pianist, where I was studying, and asked to play for him, and it was arranged that I come to the Weil Hall, that's what I heard him say. At Carnegie. In a couple of days in the morning. So, that morning I got up, I had prepared with the Schumann Fantasy. I was quite nervous. I took the subway like a good 23-year-old student would to Weil Hall, and I get to the entrance and I get to the reception and I ask for Mr. Schiff, and people look at me like I have 3 heads and don't understand what I'm doing there, why I would be looking for Andras Schiff there, and I just didn't understand what is to be done. I didn't know his phone number. I didn't have any contact information. So I actually called Mr. Good and asked him, do you know what's happening? And he said, Julia, did he not mean the Y? The 92nd Street Y? Did you not hear it wrong? And it occurred to me that I had heard a while that actually was the Y. And so I got in a cab like an irresponsible 23-year-old student and drove halfway across the city to meet him at the Y.
It's not quite next door. 92nd Street is not around the corner.
It's on the east side.
Correct.
And way up, and it just took a long time, and I was late, and he was practicing, and I felt so embarrassed and so ashamed that this is the way I, first got to play for him. But in a way, it was a blessing in disguise, because the nerves that I would have had, playing for such a legend, someone I admired since I was very young, were a bit depleted. So what was left was, again, this freeing kind of situation where I had nothing to lose anymore. And I think I actually played some of my best that time. So then from that point on, we were in touch.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And was he the one that encouraged you to come to Germany or to?
In some ways, yes. Yes, I had played for him in some festivals through the years, from that meeting onwards. And there came a moment where he started teaching at the Barenboim Said Academy, and I found out, and I asked if I should, consider doing it, and he said absolutely. And then I just went, auditioned, and joined his class.
And then Building Bridges, in his mentorship scheme, took you on, and in a sense, they're the ones, in some ways, that have also worked closely with Classeek here to help with concert opportunities and introductions.
Mm-hmm.
I also notice that you're later this year you're performing at Wigmore Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
This is a solo recital.
Yeah.
And are we hearing, from what I could also find, you're performing what we heard last night?
Yeah.
But extending the program.
Extending it, yeah.
Can you tell me about how you extend a dance program? Is it adding more dance, or are you because in a way, a Wigmore Hall debut is an opportunity to say, this is me, this is Julia, this is what I am about.
Yeah.
How did you determine the program for that debut?
So it's actually also a Building Bridges concert, actually, but I didn't know that Wigmore was an option, but it turned out to be, which I was very, very happy about and really excited for. Originally, we have two options for this program. One is this 55 to 60 minute one, and the other is the 70 minute one, something like this. So for the 70 minute one, it's drawing a slightly different thread, which is sort of one based on influence. So I notice how the dances might influence each other, but I also programmed Kurtag and Ligeti, and the two of the one Ligeti etude is dedicated to Kurtag, and the other Ligeti etude has the same exact rhythm that the first Bartók Bulgarian dance has. So it sort of goes one after another pretty interestingly and seamlessly. And the Kurtag, a set of Játékok, again, Mikrokosmos was intended originally in a way for kids, and also Kurtag's Játékok were intended originally for kids, and they become successively more challenging and
complex,
layered, complex and with meaning. I mean, they all have meaning, but with really layers. And I found the connection there, and also that so much of Kurtag, Ligeti, and Bartók are related, that there is this thread. And then, of course, Schumann is one of the greatest influencers of everyone, I find. It's also often very good to pair Kurtag, Bach, and Schumann. So there were just all sorts of threads, but this one was really about influence.
Great.
Yeah.
But from myself and from the team at Classeek, it's just been an absolute pleasure to hear you and to meet you. And I wish you all the very best for a stellar career, which is already well underway.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Thank you for having me and for talking.